Okay, hello and welcome back. This is my third time recording this version because I'm doing the Night Route chapter 7, second to last. First time my mic was not picking it up very well and was not plugged in properly, so it wasn't even picking up my voice, so what was the point? And second time my audio was just too quiet. I fixed both those issues, so now let's go ahead and record. So here we go. Night, chapter 6. Thankfully, the man isn't too hard to find. The light from the chandelier makes his golden hair almost glow as he leans over the balcony above the dance floor. There's a crystal goblet filled with the sweet red wine being served this evening, but the way Eric frowns into it is like he's disappointed it's not ale. Right, so, quick summary. We're at a winter ball in a place called Aldurin. It's very cold there, and, there's these three triplets. Does that mean there's 9? Anyway, there's these triplets that have basically say they have information for the main character, whether it's ambassador, knight, or nomad, but they'll only give the character that information if the character will do some favors for them, and the first favor is to get a lock of Eric's hair. So that's where we're at. I take my place next to him, forearms against the smooth wood of the railing. I didn't realize I wouldn't be the only knight of honor this evening. Color me surprised. Eric grunts into the goblet as he takes a long swig. Right asshole he must be. I hum in agreement. So I've heard. The duchesses seem quite keen on him, though. A smile ticks up the corner of his mouth. Well, you point him out to me and I'll be sure to kick his ass into the next kingdom. We break into laughter and he takes another drink, his nose crinkling in distaste. Ugh, there was a time when I could drink barrels of this stuff, but now... He shivers but downs the rest of the wine anyway. It's an odd feeling to watch him in this environment. Despite his exile, it looks like he belongs here, like being in formal dress is second nature. Can't help but wonder what it would have been like to serve under his command. Eric notices and matches my gaze with an amused expression and turns to face me. Spill it. Uh-oh. I force a smile as a wave of sudden and intense embarrassment washes over me over what I came over here to do in the first place. Lots of overs right next to each other. Sorry? I wasn't going to say anything. He narrows his eyes. He's on to me. I have to deflect. Why is it that you come here every year? And why do the duchesses dote on you like that, given your departure from court? A fond and happy look graces Eric's features, and I don't miss the warmth it gives me. He laughs when he glances over at the duchesses and Elizabeth catches his eye and winks at him. I suspect that they've grown softer on me over time, but long story short, Aldurin was threatened years ago and I took care of it. Now it's my turn to narrow my eyes. Being fond of a knight is one thing, but to warrant the affection the duchesses have for Eric would require something much grander in scale. Right, and I simply stumbled my way into a position in the Novian court. Yeah, because the knight had to be good at what they were doing in order to be picked to serve in Novus. Eric looks at me and for a moment it feels like a standoff to see if he'd answer me or shrug me off. Excuse me. He must be in an especially good mood because he caves. The longer version may or may not include the part where I hunted down a bandit captain in the middle of the night to take back and return an item of great personal importance that he'd stolen. He hurriedly mumbles through his words before going to take a sip of wine, pouting when he sees the goblet is empty. Looking at the flush in his cheeks, I have a feeling Eric is a bit more inebriated than he'd probably admit. You did them a big favor. I can see why they're fond of you. Eric shrugs. It was an incredibly stupid and brash thing to do, and I chastised one of my men for doing the same. I'm not sure I would do it again now. I give him a pointed look. You absolutely would. Yes, because that's who Eric is, and that's why we love him. He was called the Noble Knight for a reason. His answering grin is sheepish. In a heartbeat, yeah. Something about the tale nigs at the back of my mind. Hold on. Did you go alone to save Oduran? He squints, scrunching his face. That I did. The crown refused to send aid, even though the bandits had taken a lot and damaged more. Oduran is by no means the most profitable region, so to them it wasn't worth it. The decision didn't sit well with me, so I took care of it myself. There was only a handful of would-be usurpers. My eyes are wide, and admittedly I feel a little starstruck. I'm sure a handful by Eric's standards is far more men than I could take on at once. And silence settles between us as I force my attention away. The party bustles beneath us, but I can't linger. I have a favor to take care of. I have a confession to make, or, well, it's more of a request. But I didn't come over here just to chat. Eric watches me with a bemused expression as I begin to spiral with the embarrassment that creeps back. My eyes stay fixed on the dance floor to hide the immediate flush in my cheeks at what I'm about to ask. My throat threatens to close on me. Ehab? The words blurt out in a rush. I need a lock of your hair. Eric's brows furrow lower than I've ever seen them. He searches my face like he's trying to suss out if I'm joking or not. Did Raiden put you up to this? He did not, and it is somewhat of a time-sensitive thing, but I promise, it's important. More furrowing. I'm assuming this isn't for you. Who are you giving it to? I finally look at Eric and immediately realize my mistake. I can't look away, and if I say anything that isn't the truth, he'll surely know. My voice shakes as I answer. One of the Marquis' triplets. Eric runs a hand over his face, and he suddenly looks very tired. Bedraggled, even. Fuck's sake. It's not Rhea, is it? She used to come to the training grounds and just stare. I swallowed thickly. I won't tell you it's not her. The stare Eric fixes me makes my back straighten like I'm at attention. I can only imagine how fierce he was during his time as Knight Commander. Thankfully, though, his expression melts into something closer to mild annoyance. It's important? I nod before he's even done speaking. Very. It's a long story, but they say they have important information, but you know how it is with the nobles. Everything comes at a price. Which is your hair. The sigh he gives is tired, defeated even, but he nods anyway. Fine. He quickly procures a slim knife from somewhere in his jacket. Reaching back, he pulls a strand of his hair from the nape of his neck. He hesitates, just for a moment, but slices the knife through before he can second-guess himself. I love that he ultimately caves. Because he respects the main character, whether ambassador, knight, or nomad, too much to refuse them. He knows that they wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. Eric drops the hair into my open palm with a wary expression. There. You have no idea how grateful I am. Thank you. A large hand waves me off. Don't mention it. Seriously, don't. Especially to Raiden or Rue, they can never know about this. I gave him a salute before I trekked back towards the triplets, but not before shooting one last comment back to Eric. Full disclosure, it was Rhea who asked. My feet carry me away quickly before I can protest, and I disappear into the thicket of partygoers in front of me. The triplets turn to greet me as I approach, as if they were expecting me. Rhea is vibrating, her hands gripping her fan so tightly her knuckles bleed. I think they mean bleed white. Her sisters look incredibly unamused. Before I'm able to say a word, Rhea holds out an open silk sachet and clears her throat. Just pop it in here, please. I tilt my head and give her a very fake smile. You're an eager one. Who's to say I don't have it? Honestly, why would you be returning without the lock of hair? Rhea snorts, earning a hiss reprimand from Callisto. Bold of you to think I haven't mastered the ability to know exactly where Sir Eric is at any given time. Rhea, please leave a shred of dignity, if not for yourself, for us. I hold out the lock of Eric's hair and nearly flinch with how fast Rhea snatches it from me. Callisto takes a deep, calming breath. Are you quite satisfied? Rhea doesn't even bother to answer, too busy holding the little pouch to her nose, inhaling deeply, and tucking it away in her dress. Definitely won't be mentioning that to Eric. Now, back to the task at hand. Callisto pulls out the tarot deck again, the gilded edges shining as she shuffles and offers me 2 piles. I take the top card from the left and hand it to her. She hums thoughtfully. The Tower, a card that most people fear above all others. Her voice is surprisingly serious, with no hint of sarcasm or snark woven in. Lucky me. The Tower usually appears at the precipice of great upheaval and chaos, both personal and societal. Each word hits heavy like a hammer. Something tells me she's manipulating the cards, purposefully showing me the ones that are the most relevant. It's less than a comforting thought. Now, the thing about tarot readings is, I'm sure it is possible to manipulate the cards, but I honestly don't think that's the case here. I think this is an honest tarot reading. And these cards are coming up because they're the ones the writers wanted to come up. But beyond that, I think these are honestly meant to help the ambassador, knight, or nomad, regardless of what the character thinks. Don't fret, sir, for you see, I pulled the card in the reverse position. One interpretation is resistance to change, but another is avoiding disaster. That is not horrible. A small flicker of hope sparks in my chest. Whatever you're doing, whatever path you're on, is the one you want to stay on. But remember, this can change depending on your actions. When she smiles, it's actually genuine, and I can feel myself breathe a little for a change. If there is one thing I've come to appreciate, it's avoiding disaster. True. That was actually reassuring. Thank you, my ladies. Should we move on to the next item on the docket? Before Callisto can utter a word, Umbriel snaps her fan closed and uses it to point to the dance floor. Fate would have it that my dance card for the evening is yet to be filled. I'm saving it for a specific someone. This seems easy. A little too easy. Yeah, because obviously we know what's coming now. I see. Well, no need to beat around the bush then. I give a small bow and offer my hand to her. Harmonious giggles escape the triplets, and my cheeks immediately heat as I realize how I've misread the entire situation. As lucky as the lady I would be to have you as a dance partner, sir, I had someone else in mind. I was hoping you'd be able to persuade Ambassador Veritas to join me for a dance. I like that she's nice about it. Like, she respects that the knight interpreted her request that way, but she's like, no, that wasn't what I had in mind, but thank you. Yes, of course. Very well. An intense, highly awkward silence overtakes us, and I scramble to think of something to say. Oh, right. I need dice. Hang on. Okay. I have a, 2-sided dice. Basically a coin. One side is a 1, the other side is a 20. So this will be the 1, and this will be the 20. 20. It just slipped out of my hand, but we'll go with it. Why Lucian? Is there any particular reason you want to dance with Ambassador Veritas? I'm not sure I've seen you two speak. Umbriel flutters her fan lazily. I'm cashing in the prize I won from them years ago. A drunken game of wits that I walked away from triumphantly, much to their delicious surprise. If you haven't seen them speechless, I recommend it. Maybe. The story seems almost a little too specific to be false, and the idea of a mind game sounds right up Lucian's alley. And the prize was a dance? No, something far more valuable. A favor. A favor for a dance? What would be the use of... Callisto cuts in before I can finish. Time is quite precious this evening, Ambassador. I think that's supposed to be night. I suggest you begin on your second task. Callisto's voice carries finality with it, and I take my cue to start on the second task. Weaving through the crowd, I'm starting to wish that Lucian wasn't in their human form glamour. Blue skin would be easy to spot and make my job infinitely easier. But where would be the fun in that? You really think Lucian would make it easy to find them? Exactly, but I highly doubt Lucian has ever made anything easy in their life. Their very long life. If I were a betting knight, I'd say they're likely staying right near that slippery little assassin. But as I wander around, I don't see either one of them. Not a single flash of white hair. It's on my second loop around the room that I spot Raiden and Rue lurking around the snack table, which makes my shenanigan sense tingle. Lucian, however, is not with them. The two of them grin as I approach, their mouths and hands full with various sweet and savory morsels. Crumbs fall freely from Rue's mouth as they speak. Ehab, you're having fun? Rue doesn't wait for my answer before flitting back to the snack table. The absurdity of this pair makes me laugh and shake my head. If it was a different night, I'd likely try to scold them, but for now, I'll take whatever levity I can get. Raiden is actively stuffing some tea biscuits into his pockets with one hand, takes a cherry in the other, holding it by the stem above his head, and sticking his tongue out as he places the fruit on it, stem and all. I am, but maybe not as much as you two. Raiden takes my hand and flattens it, palm up. He plucks the cherry stem from his mouth, now in a knot, and drops it into my hand. Lovely. So yeah, that's just a thing to demonstrate how dexterous your tongue is. It's supposed to be very suggestive. I'm not sure how suggestive I find it, but my preferences are different from others, so someone would. There's nothing quite like taking advantage of the obscenely wealthy. Chocolate eyes look me up and down while Raiden pops his cherry-tinted lips. You're not here for the ours, are you? I'm pretty sure it's pronounced ours. Raiden grunts and shrugs. Ours, ours, whores, all the same thing, ain't it? It takes everything in me not to roll my eyes. Instead, I just take a deep breath and press on. I have things to do. I'm looking for Lucian. There's something important I need to ask them. Raiden hums thoughtfully around another cherry. What do those triplets have you up to? Did they make you their little errand runner? I wince. Is it that obvious? I mean, yeah, I thought that's what you were trying to do. Watching you react to whatever it is they tell you has been a highlight of my evening. Well, that's just great. He unceremoniously spits out the pit of the cherry into his hand, eyes wide. Wait, so you weren't trying to be conspicuous? Yikes. Look, I really need to find Lucian. Callisto says they have important information, but that they won't share it with me unless I do them favors. Raiden smirks. Wow, they really have you by the... Did I mention that this is a time-sensitive task? He deadpans out. I've been resistant to his play long enough for him to lose interest. That's how you do it. Just ignore him being a little shit until he gives up on it. Lucian wandered off a while ago and hasn't been back. They do that. Your best bet is to go somewhere people aren't supposed to be. I run an exasperated hand over my face. So now I have to add trespassing to my list of tasks tonight? Lovely. Thank you though, Raiden. I appreciate the help. No problem. And Ehab puts a crumb-covered hand on my shoulder and squeezes it gently, but his brown eyes are soft and serious, his jaw set. I know you're a big knight and can handle yourself, but if you're about to die, just scream. I'll come running. If you remember, with the ambassador, Raiden didn't preface that. Just said, just scream. And of course, with the nomad, well, I'm not going to say that because, supposedly you're watching these in order. Thanks. His laugh is strangely soothing, and I can feel some tension leave my shoulders. Anytime. He turns me towards Lucian's direction, and Rue gives me a wave as I pass by. Raiden, did you see? They brought more food out. These oysters are amazing. I have to consciously pronounce it the way they're pronouncing it in the story, because I know the correct pronunciation. Just keep walking. Weaving through the crowd gets easier each time, I find, and I quickly dart around skirts and drunkenly tilt the goblets that splash red onto the marble floor. Quietly, I sneak past the doors and find myself faced with the hallway. If I was a demon who liked being places I shouldn't be, which way would I go? So, if you watch the ambassador route. You know that going left leads to an interesting complication. And so we're gonna go left again. See if the same thing happens with the knight. Spoilers, already know what happens. I think I remember reading somewhere that because the majority of people are right-handed, they'll tend to go down right-sided paths. And Lucian loves to be different, so the left seems like the best bet. Excellent logic. Except when I play games and I'm given a choice of going to the left or the right, I tend to go left. But maybe I'm just unusual like that. Along the corridor of ornate doors, I find one that seems rather nondescript. Even better, I grip the cool metal of the handle and throw it open. Immediately, I want to close it. The room is a linen closet, but in the cramped space are none other than Cedric and Maddox. Max squeaks and presses himself against the side of the room. Cedric, for his part, seems largely unaffected. I look at my squire. Do I want to know? He shakes his head furiously. I'm leaving now. I didn't see anything, and none of us will utter a word. Is that understood? Hey, I don't take orders from you. I level him with my most intimidating stare. Because I am in an agreement. Yes, you saw nothing. Before I mentally scar myself further, I turn and pull the door closed behind me. As someone who did watch this live commented, pity you couldn't stay and watch. And honestly, if it weren't Maddox, I probably wouldn't mind watching. But if they don't invite me to watch, then I'm not going to stay and watch. Right hallway it is. I see a roll of fabric outside, and as I walk closer, I find Lucian lounging on one of the conversation couches placed there. Lucian doesn't seem surprised by my arrival, barely giving me a glance from the book they're reading, a small red one with delicate pages. Whatever has you in such a tizzy? I can practically feel the stress pouring. Why did I do that? Pouring off of you. Have the triplets been giving you trouble? Does everyone know that I've been meeting with them? This time Lucian does look up at me. Yes. I sink down onto the other settee with a groan. Well, that saves time, I suppose. They've told me that there's information I need, but they're gatekeeping it until I do favors for them. Lucian laughs. That doesn't surprise me. They're the cleverest pigeons of the Novan court. Bold of them to show their hand in a place like this, though. I'm curious what they will deign to divulge. What did they want in return? Safe and away from the hordes of nobles, I dramatically roll my eyes, a relief of it instant. They wanted something different each, of course, and I've been on a wild goose chase most of the evening. Rhea's request was interesting, to say the least. Lucian leans forward, smelling juicy details in the air. Unfortunately, I've been sworn to secrecy on that one. Lucian hums. No matter, I'll find out in time. I have my ways. Of course they will. I have no doubt that Lucian will find out what that favor was. What about the others? Callisto is saving herself for last, but Umbriel would like to dance with you. Lucian's impeccable facade cracks at this, their nose crinkling and their mouths turned down like they drank soured wine. Of course she does. I am not very fond of Umbriel, you know. She's one of the few mortals I've ever lost a competition to, and one about gossip at that. I learned to abandon pride long ago, but that loss done. Yeah, I would imagine so, especially if Lucian prides himself on their ability to gather secrets. My voice drips with sarcasm when I respond. I can't even imagine. They chuckle at that, jewelry clicking faintly as they wave their hand. Clearly she wanted to cash in her favor in full view of everyone who's anyone. I'd probably do the same. Consider your task done, Ehab. And just like that, a burden lifts from my chest. Thank the gods for small mercies, I suppose. Thank you, Lucian, truly. Lucian hums thoughtfully as they stand, brushing the front of their robes until they smooth out. No problem at all. I'd gladly suffer through a dance with her if it means helping you. Now, question about the front of the robes. Do they mean this front of the robes? Because there's nothing right there. But if they mean this front and this front and this, then I get it. They take a deep breath and glance back at me with a look I can't quite place. The air is alight with interesting energy, sir. Can you feel it? No. Is it good energy? They shrug and smile. I think that remains to be seen. Exciting, no? For someone who isn't the knight, or ambassador, or nomad. They're gone before I can even start to process their cryptic farewell. The temptation to stay on the settee, curl up, and sleep is almost too strong to ignore, but the nervous feeling in my gut returns before too long. I need to push through. One more task, that's all, and this will all be over with. The din of the ball grows louder as I make my way back. I take my time, mulling over the information the triplets have in my head. So much has happened in my time in Novus that any number of things are possible. Do they have knowledge about the Queen and King? Is this to help with the betterment of Novus, or is the information for me personally? I'm not even sure how they acquire their secrets in the first place. It's likely that everyone who calls the palace home has an entire network, a flock, even of birds. The low rumble of a man speaking stops me in my tracks. The noise seems to come from behind the door on my left, which is slightly ajar. It wasn't like that when I walked down here. So my family has a joke about doors being ajar, because it sounds like we're saying the door is a jar. But it can't be. It's a door. It's silly. That's the way our family works. And just like that, my training comes crashing back into me. I move as quietly as I can, pressing myself to the wall by the door and leaning my ear close. I recognize Nazir, but the other voice is foreign to me. Looking in doesn't help much either. They're shrouded in shadow, and the crack in the door isn't wide enough to get into any details. Look, I'm trying. You're asking something of me that's next to impossible, especially in a public space. I'm not even sure if I want to. I can't. Nazir whirls around and I jerk away from the door, hurrying down the hallway as quietly as I can. Alarm bells are clanging loudly in my head, and my whole body is on alert, like I'm about to be sent into battle. Something else, too, a feeling that washes over me that makes my chest tight. I felt like when I was with Knidros at the end of the encounter when everything began to fall into chaos. I couldn't breathe, not with that fear and anxiety closing in around my throat. This can't be a good sign. I don't stop walking until I'm back in the ballroom, steeling myself to maintain composure. Lucian and Umbriel have already begun their dance, which is good. My priority, though, is to find Masha. Thankfully, this proves fairly easy. Masha always has this special glow around her, not only in her magic, but also with something that is distinctly and undeniably her. She's magnanimous and magical, and it draws people to her. She catches my eye, concern crossing her face, and she mutters something to the Viscount she was talking to, and makes her way over to me. Ehab, what's wrong? I offer my hand and jerk my head, I think that's supposed to be head, to a more secluded corner nearby. Swift as ever, she doesn't miss a beat. She lets me pull her into a small alcove and lean in close. Have you seen your brother this evening? Masha's brow furrows at the mention of Nazir, and her mouth tilts down unhappily. I'm not required to keep constant tabs on him, you know. And the lack of tact I've developed a habit from my profession bites me in the ass once again. Because if you remember when the ambassador asked her the same question, they prefaced it by saying, I know you're not his keeper, but... Apologies, I know that you aren't. I do need to know, though. Have you seen him? Her expression softens. Yes, he's been on the outskirts of the party, like he always is. Why? I was going to find Lucian, and I heard and saw him behind a door that wasn't closed all the way, and I couldn't figure out what he was speaking about, but he seemed upset about something. The Archmage is silent for a long moment. You didn't see who he was with? No, the energy he was giving off was unsettling, though. I'm not sure whether or not to mention how it reminded me of Knidros. Someone overhearing that a goddess came and told me I need to save the country is definitely not a good scenario to imagine. Nope, definitely not. Masha sighs and places a comforting hand on my arm. I'm sure he was simply doing his job. There's a lot of information to be gathered here, especially if you're a spy master. I'm forever grateful for the calming aura Masha has, and I can feel it wash over me, my heart rate slowing down a little. Of course, I'm sorry, I'm just very out of my element here. I feel like I'm being pulled in 100 different directions, and if I'm not careful, I'll tear apart. Her face turns stern, annoyed, but I know it's not directed at me. Do I need to have a word with the Marquis's daughters? I throw my hands up. If I had known I'm this blatantly obvious, I should never become a knight. All that stealth training was wasted, it seems. The twinkling laugh from Masha is irresistible, and I can't help but smile with her. I mean, look at that. How can you resist smiling? Don't be so hard on yourself. You have an easier time sneaking into the throne room in Novus than you would going unnoticed here, even if you weren't the guest of honor. Even being gone for too long draws suspicion. What matters is if people know what you're talking about. Whatever's been discussed between you and the triplets, I haven't heard a word over it. So that's something. So everyone knows that they're talking to the triplets, but no one knows what they're talking about. And that's partially because I'm sure the triplets are making an effort to ensure they're not overheard, and that's why they're being so circumspect. I knew I can spell the word. I cannot pronounce the word. I don't know how that's possible. Well, there's that at least. A long sigh escapes my lips. Speaking of, I need to find those three again. No judgment, but I should warn you about trying to enter any sort of relationship with them. Those that do are rarely seen again, mostly from embarrassment, but still. I scrunched my nose. Oh no. Never. Not even once. They say they have information. I'm doing them some favors to get it. I have one left, but it's incredibly taxing. Yes. She laughs again. I don't blame you. Even so, they have their uses, sometimes. I gave a huff laugh and looked back into the crowd, trying to will myself to move. Wait. I know you don't have any of your usual weapons on you, and that must be disorienting. Is it alright if I give you an enchantment? Just for peace of mind. I don't know if it's for her peace of mind, or mine, or both, but I eagerly nod. Please, that's very kind of you. She places her hands on the sides of my head and quickly mutters words I don't understand under her breath. It happens rapidly, a whirl of cool air flowing under my clothes that settles into my skin. All done. It's pretty potent, but also fairly undetectable. But don't go putting yourself in between dueling swords, please. She squeezes my hand, and a rush of relief washes over me. Maja is incredibly intuitive, and it makes me feel safer that she indulged my borderline paranoia. Run along now. The last thing we want to do is keep the triplets waiting, but come find me if you need anything else. I nod and go to find the triplets once more. Umbriel fans herself a little quicker, her cheeks pink from her dance with Lucian. Callisto taps her nails along the tarot deck. You've returned. I give a small bow. Was your dance with Ambassador Veritas all that you wished for? And more, I should say. Thank you, sir. I smile despite myself, one step closer to this being done and over with. I'm used to the phrase being the other way around, over and done with. Excellent. That just leaves you, Lady Callisto. What is it you need from me? Her lips twist into a frown. Impatience will get you nowhere, sir. She waggles the tarot deck, and my eyes roll before I can stop them. Which was clearly not the reaction they were hoping for. Rhea scoffs and flutters her fan angrily. This is truly necessary. Callisto's voice is low and deadly. Quite. For someone in your profession, you'd think you would have caught on better by now. My jaw drops, a small grunt of protestation dying in my throat. Rhea and Umbriel roll their eyes. Have you not grasped what it is that's happening here? A game? Yes, but everything is a game. We're trying to help you. Callisto holds up her index finger, and her sisters fall quiet behind her, eyes still narrowed at me. Let me speak as plainly as possible, then. The nature of this information is to be handled with much care and discretion. If I were to speak like a commoner amidst this crowd, it would warrant much unnecessary attention. We're hiding in plain sight. Surely this concept is not foreign to you as a knight. I sniff. Her words are cutting, but not necessarily incorrect. But do you have to be so cryptic? I have been cryptic in the sense that my words seem to have fallen outside the bounds of your mental capacity. That was harsh, but I hear you. With a huff, Callisto pulls the next card. I do not like what I see. A skeleton in armor riding a horse, death scrawled in elegant script at the bottom. That seems a little too pointed to my liking, even if I'm not currently in armor. Callisto laughs. Worry not, sir. Despite appearances, this is one of my favorite cards in the major arcana. I cross my arms. Go on. The more negative aspects of death reversed may signify once again hesitancy to change, but upright, how it was pulled, is a large indicator that a time of endings is near, with a new journey coming up to meet you. To put it in a way you understand, this card is largely about accepting what will come to pass, and being hopeful something is better on the horizon. The breath I didn't realize I was holding and whooshes out. Hope. That's a beautiful word. It is. Now, sir, I would like to ask for my favor. The cards get tucked away, and she pulls her hand out of the pocket, holding a different card, smaller, with the insignia of a serpent wrapped around a dagger in blood-red ink in the center. The same insignia found inked into Ryan's shoulder. Callisto presses the card to my palm. Your next task will be to fetch that white-haired friend of yours. There's a conversation I need to have with him. Yeah. I have not drawn the line, but I really don't want to. No, not yet. Don't question it. This is a moral and ethical bomb that I don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole. For the benefit of my sanity and my job, I decide that I'm going to stay out of it, get the test done, and never think about this again. Do I compartmentalize my friendship with Raiden so I don't have to think about the conflict there? Absolutely I do. And it's going to stay that way. One slippery ragamuffin coming right up. I sink back into the crowd without another word. My strategy is to start at the refreshment table, hoping that Raiden and Rue haven't become bored with gorging themselves, but that doesn't seem to be the case. The table is near empty, and so is the space around it. Great. I spot Eric in the crowd, but he's deep in conversation with Masha, and I daren't interrupt whatever important conversation they're having. Now, please remember that Ehub is romancing Eric and Masha, so whatever conversation they're having, if Ehub needs to know about it, they'll tell them. Yeah, Ehub is say them. Lucien is talking with an old burly earl, looking equal parts amused and disgusted, their eyes focused on the man's outrageous mustache. There's a grasp of a strong hand on my shoulder, and I spin around to find a very uncomfortable-looking Livia. I love your element too, huh? I nod, sighing heavily. Extremely. I'm so used to structure that being thrust into an event that is purposefully unstructured with no weapon is our worst nightmare? Exactly. Honestly, if I'm at an event and there's nothing to tell me what to do, I'm at a loss. I need to have some direction, something to tell me what's expected of me. Like, if I go to balls and there's a dinner beforehand, that's great. I'll eat the dinner, and then afterwards it's just the dancing, and I'm like, what do I do with myself? Livia grumbles, her head absolutely floating over the place where a sword pommel should be. I don't like feeling this vulnerable, or this sober. Her gaze drifts off me and onto nothing in particular, her voice lowered to a whisper. Am I in hell? I mean, to someone like Livia, it feels like hell, I'm sure. I have to assume this question was not meant for me. Did you fill your dance card or whatever that everyone apparently has but me? She chuckles lightly. Dance cards are real, but none were passed around tonight, so don't worry. And no, I haven't. These bloody, bloated nobles aren't worthy of my time. I know, but I did dance with Masha. Once. And only because she made me. It sounds about right. Olivia sways as she gestures with the goblet in her hand, and I get the sense that Olivia is less sober than she's letting on, or cares to acknowledge. I can't say I blame you. Olivia's eyes float away from me again, this time razor-focused, and I follow the line of sight to Eric. I shouldn't say anything, but curiosity gets the best of me. Have you spoken to him? Her gaze is sharp as it snaps back to me, and I feel as though I'm about to be reprimanded, but only for a moment. The edges of her face soften, and her bottom lip quivers for a fleeting second. She's sad. Her voice lacks its normal cutting edge when she speaks. I don't think we have much to say to one another. I'm not sure he even wants to speak to me. There's a pause as she clears her throat. Or maybe I'm too afraid to find out. Oh, sweetheart, he cares for you. He wants you happy. The air between us stills, and I try to find the right words to fill it. I think you may know the answer, and I can tell you with certainty that he's proud of you. So proud. She gives a quiet, stuttered breath, and she blinks a few times. I'm relieved that she doesn't press me on how I know. Right, that doesn't change things, though. Doesn't change. There's a deep pause, and a sign spreads again. Less awkward, and definitely a sign that she needs some space. I'm going to... She frowns into her empty wine goblet. Get a refill? Precisely. She lifts it up at me and begins to walk off. See you around, Ehab. I need to get some air and regroup. Finding someone who's an expert in hiding in plain sight is tricky. I hope that he never challenges me to a game of hide and seek. I don't know why I keep randomly pressing the right button. The balcony beckons for me with its open air and sparsely scattered people. I take a deep breath and I step out onto it. There's a press of whips to my ear, and a scarred hand stops the fist that I instinctively flies up to punch whoever's behind me in the face. Typical Raiden. But that's cool that he knew the knight would lash out and was prepared for it. He points to a little alcove where I see Rue and their sister speaking in hushed tones. I step away from Ryan and whisper, "What's wrong?" Dunno, but Rue looks upset, which rarely happens. I don't like it. Raiden genuinely seems worried, and I'm not quite sure what to do about it. For someone who earns a living taking lives, he sure does seem to care about a select few and very deeply. That makes sense. When you can only trust a few people with your life, you learn to cherish them. And will do anything to protect them. Isn't Eleanor supposed to be watching Rue's tree? Raiden looks just as unhappy about that as I am, but he shrugs. She is, but apparently she felt that whatever was happening up here was too important to ignore. I don't like the sound of that. I have a favor to ask. This distracts him enough for him to tear his gaze away from Rue and onto me, the mischievous glint back in his dark eyes. I knew it was only a matter of time until one of them sought out my bed. Rumors can only fuel so many dirty thoughts. His smirk is unwavered by my deadened look on my face. As much as it pains me to say it, I'd much rather that be the case. I hold up the card and watch his face fall, and his eyes go wide. He plucks it from my fingers and inspects it. Contraband? From a pretty little knight like yourself? I snort. I'm pretty? Sharp eyes flick up to meet my gaze while studying the card and wets his bottom lip. Slip of the tongue. He looks where Rue and Eleanor are still talking and sighs. I have to go take care of this. I can talk, I swear. Will you? I've got them. Now go. Raiden gives a curt nod, their cheery demeanor slipping into something more professional. I ignore the resulting twist of guilt in my gut. Right, I'll find you guys later, okay? He disappears before I can respond. My eyes fall upon a nearby bench, and I seize the opportunity to rest my feet. Walking for hours in armor I can handle, but every minute in this finery feels like torture. I watch the toupee as discreetly as I can. The swirling greens of Eleanor's dress and Rue's cape move as they speak, but I can't hear them. So my mind wanders, and for the first time since arriving at Errantis, I feel homesick. The feeling starts in my gut and sweeps up to my heart and grips it tightly. I miss the summers, the sound of the grass rustling in fields, of seeing the fae playing near streams. I miss the scent of the flower fields in the springtime, making wreaths and crowns from them with my fae cousins. I've long since disillusioned myself with the idea that Bithris is perfect. No kingdom ever has been, but it's home, and the fate of it rests in the hands of feuding gods, and I somehow find myself in the middle of. Exhaustion hits me all at once, sinking deep into my bones. The path ahead is bound to be long and fraught with complications. I push the thought out of my mind. Dwelling on such things now won't help, so I distract myself by watching the stars overhead. I'm only pulled from my daze when I notice Rue and Eleanor walking away from their spot. The look of displeasure melts from Lady Silverleaf's face as she takes notice of me, but I see her mouth twitch downward when Rue rushes to me and grabs my hand. Where'd Raiden go? He'll be back. Someone was requesting to speak with him. Rue nods with understanding. Lady Silverleaf hasn't moved, her eyes fixated on me. I give a small bow. Lady Silverleaf, it's a pleasure to see you. She tilts her head. You've had a busy evening, sir. I fight up the urge to wince and try to laugh off her statement. And my feet have the blisters to show for it. Eleanor's eyes narrow and she steps closer. Rue straightens to their full height, graceful features hardening. So many pieces on the board are constantly in motion. I wonder, are you a pawn? Or a piece that makes a difference, like a knight? Your importance remains to be seen. Eleanor. She ignores her sibling, deep brown eyes burning as she watches me. We're not going to ignore her. This is Rue's sister. I stand tall, matching her gaze with equal fervor. Don't underestimate me, even if I am a pawn. They can be some of the most impactful pieces on the board. My shoulder tingles at the noise that grows from her unwavering face. I'm not weak. You may believe my human ancestry makes me weak, but it only makes me stronger. I don't miss the way her eyes widen, but the moment passes before I can blink. I try not to smirk at my little victory. Humans are stunted by their lifespans, unable to see the bigger picture, and thus they see their societies crumble every millennium. Your patron deems you different, even though they possess far more power than you. Rue halts, their mouth contorts into a snarl, and their voice is harsh. Eleanor, enough! Don't be so foolish as to ignore my warning, Rue. One day all these mortals will be gone, in one way or another. You need to prepare yourself. Stop it! Their fists are clenched so hard their knuckles bleed. I believe that's supposed to be bleed white. Eleanor purposefully ignores this and turns her attention to me, gently patting the back of their shoulder, mirroring Nitro's mark. Caution will be your biggest defense. Your little secret is quickly becoming common knowledge. Eleanor walks away in the enraged silence brewing within Rue and I. Their breathing is loud and quick, their lips set to a thin line. They rarely speak so frankly, and for Lady Silverleaf to do so gives me an unsettling feeling in the pit of my stomach. Rue looks shaken down to their core. Rue, are you all right? And your tree, are you in danger? Rue reaches out and takes one of my hands in theirs. My tree is fine, but no, I'm not okay. My heart aches with their honesty. We're quite different, my sister and I, and as the years have passed, we have less and less in common. This, though, she's never drawn a line in the sand like this. Eleanor always was a fickle thing, choosing neutrality above all else. You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but what were you talking about? It looked tense. It isn't anything we haven't argued about before. My sister's never been overly fond of humans. Every once in a while she finds what she tolerates, but it's rare. More often than not, she sees them as a threat to our kind. Sharp teeth bite down on their plush lower lip, their brows furrowed in worry. Have you felt it, Ehab? This shift, this change in energy, ever since we saw those cloaked strangers in the forest. And it's not just in Novus. Fae all over the country can feel something churning in the underbelly. I can feel it. It's hard to describe, but it settles deep at the core of me, a dark and incessant thrumming that's impossible to ignore. What my sister doesn't see is that whatever's happening is not just for humans to deal with. We can't retreat and hide in our trees like we've done before. I can't just sit back and watch. I mean, there's a reason that Rue spends time with humans so much. A large snip and Rue hastily wipes their nose with their sleeve. My friends need me. You and Eric and Rye. Think of how much my people can help. That's what I was trying to tell Eleanor. She's just as stubborn as I am, if not more so. When they look at me again, their age shows far more on their eternally young face. I can't fathom how much they've seen. I don't blame Eleanor for acting in her and Rue's best interests, but Rue is different, clinging to these tenuous bonds that will wither before they ever do. I lace my fingers through theirs and squeeze. Everything's gonna be okay, Rue. Rue brightens just a little, and they gently knock their head against mine. It doesn't escape me how they don't return the sentiment. They aren't supposed to lie, but of course it doesn't mean they can't find a way around that. But it says something that Rue doesn't even try. You should go and find Raiden. With each passing hour, the energy of the ball seems to amplify. The free flow of alcohol certainly helps, but even those who don't partake seem like heightened, wilder versions of themselves. I spot a fluffy tuft of white hair and head towards it, only to find Raiden having an intense discussion with the triplets. Their voices drop to biting, hushed tones. What I want to know is how you clever little birds finagled your way into a favor from the Viper. This little card is one of the rarest items in all of Novus. Callisto purses her lips. I'm under no obligation to tell you anything other than the details needed for you to do your job. Shit. I stepped forward, hoping that I could try to stop whatever's happening, my conscience getting the best of me. Excuse me, my lady, I don't mean to interrupt, but... Her head whipped around to face me. A chill runs down my spine at the sight of Callisto's jaw, her mouth contorted into a thin line. Raiden looks flustered, which is concerning in itself. This does not concern you, sir. Your task is done. My task involved my friend merely speaking with you, not a transaction for an illegal service. She gives an incredulous little giggle. You went and fetched this man, and assumed what, exactly? That we'd have tea and discuss the intricacies of foreign policy? My money was on proving that I'm a dynamo in the sack. He has the decency to wither from our glares and flinches at a swat from Umbriel's fan. I don't know. Your currency's information is secrets. It's not a stretch to see you borrowing some from him. Raiden perks up. I do pride myself on keeping the most scrumptious secrets. Collecting them is like self-care. Callisto speaks through gritted teeth. I require a different set of skills. She glares at me, clearly still annoyed at my presence. Now, sir, I need to get back to business with our friend here. Oi, I'm not your friend, lady. No, need that information. My body feels frozen in place, like the warring thoughts in my brain have rendered me immobile. I need to get a grip. Raiden is what he is, and I need that information. Besides, Raiden hasn't stopped working since my arrival in Novus. I've just shoved the truth of it away, so I don't have to think about it. Didn't have to think about it. I'll go, but I don't want any further involvement with this. Callisto's smile and voice are sickly sweet, barely hiding the annoyance in her voice. That was the plan. Before you interrupted us. I nod, feeling more awkward by the second. Just promise me you aren't going to do anything, tonight. I'm sorry to think you believe I'm an imbecile, sir. Raiden poorly stifles a snort. No, I was just making sure. Raiden looks at me and smiles, genuine care in his eyes. Don't worry, Ehab. I'll come to find you when we're done. Alright. I beeline for the server carrying a tray of wine goblets and Snagwin, distracting myself with it while I wait. I don't have to for very long. Raiden's likely streamlined this process by now, but that doesn't soothe the gnawing guilt in my stomach in the role I played, no matter how minimal. There's a part of me that's certain that this would have happened eventually, either here or back in Novus. She's as stubborn as she is clever, and if she can get the Viper favor, soon it would be straightforward. Raiden swoops back into view as I finish the goblet and set it on the nearest table. All finished? Raiden shrugs. Everything that's going to happen tonight is. He watches me grimace and pats me on the shoulder. Don't beat yourself up too much, yeah? Hard not to when I feel like I'm about to vomit. Need more water. Okay, I'm gonna go get some more water. I'll be right back. Okay, that was going a little longer than I planned. This way. Okay. The microphone cord doesn't want to say where I put it. He looks at me with sympathetic eyes. If it's any consolation, this would have been assigned to me sooner or later. You wouldn't have been able to stop it. That just makes it feel worse, but I try not to let it on. Thanks. Callisto wants to speak to you, if you're ready. Right, time to see if all my hard work this evening was even worth it. Raiden nudges me with his elbow. Want some company? I nod, and he ushers me towards the triplets. Don't stray too for our sake. What I'm about to say might pique your interest. For a moment, I forget to breathe as Callisto pulls out one last card from the tarot deck. This one portrays a man holding a bundle of swords, two impaled in the ground behind him as he walks away. I won't sugarcoat this. The card I'm holding is both dangerous and urgent. The Seven of Swords. The sisters remain eerily still, their eyes wide as they watch us. This card is primarily associated with one thing, betrayal. Betrayal, but who's doing the betraying? And who's being betrayed? Raiden and I glanced at each other, worry mirrored on our faces. Care to elaborate? Ehab, you're going to find yourself in direct opposition with someone who wields enough power to upend life as we know it. My ears ring as words settle into my brain, and I could feel my heart begin to race. But when you said urgent, you meant tonight, didn't you? Callisto nods. Fuck! My thoughts exactly. Do you have any specifics on who or when? Unfortunately, no. You must stay on your guard. The evening draws closer to a close by the minute. The room around me feels like it's spinning, and the weight of the information sits heavily on my shoulders. Despite all my years of training, of prepping for battle, my instinct tells me to run and curl up into a ball. Distantly, I realize what I'm feeling is fear, and when I look at Raiden, I realize that's not only for myself, but for my friends. I know what you've done tonight wasn't easy, my ladies. I give a deep bow. Thank you. I'm not through with you quite yet, sir. She steps in too closely and presses her lips to my ear. When you return home, take careful note of the riches found throughout the castle. The ones that glitter are pretty, yes, but the true treasure is not a jewel, but a weapon, imbued with power from centuries of use by those worthy enough to wield it. Should this fall into the wrong hands, disaster will befall us. It is your key to your survival and ours. Callisto demurely steps away from me and exhales deeply like she's been unburdened from a great weight. Her sisters look equally relieved. They must have been sitting on that information for a long time. Umbriel clears her throat and gives me a quick gesture of her fan towards Lucian, who's loitering at the edges of the dance floor. Ambassador Veritas is quite the collector of unusual things, and that little book I've been carrying this evening is no exception. I suggest you take a look at it, if you can, before anyone else, if possible. There's a pang in my chest at this, saying how the triplets have more than made good on our promise. I've misread these women, and the shame of it burns in my cheeks. The time has come to part ways, sir. The game is not easy for people like you, but you've proven yourself to be quite the player. We're impressed. I bow again. The pleasure was mine, my ladies. You've impressed me as well. Maybe in a different life we would have been friends. Callisto laughs, a real one this time, and it sounds like the peal of bells. No, I don't think we would be. She's right, and I can't help but laugh as well. Farewell, sir. We'll be watching. If you play your cards right, you won't lose. The triplets curtsy in unison and fade into the crowd without another word. As they walk away, a horrible sense of dread rises in my chest. I think about the Seven of Swords again. Betrayal, Callisto had said. There's a sick feeling in my gut that says the night isn't close to being over. Taking Umbriel's advice, I make my way over to Lucian, who's now in the middle of a dance with a noble woman I've forgotten the name of. Thankfully, I'm able to step in and swap partners easily, Lucian gracefully excusing himself to fall into step with me. Well, well, take away the armor and you become quite the graceful one. Their grin is devilish, and it's so tempting to just let go and lean into the festivities, to let Lucian whisk me around the dance floor until I'm dizzy. They guide me easily, soothing whatever anxiety I had about keeping up with them. You have your serious thinking face on. Do you have something on your mind? I savor the last few seconds of peace before I answer. When we were speaking earlier, you were holding a small red book. I need to borrow it, if that's all right. They give a small, interested hum, which is as close to being surprised as I'll probably ever see Lucian. A keen observation. Why the sudden interest? 3 clever birds pass along that's important for what's to come. That book might be the missing piece to this puzzle I found myself in. And apparently it's a highly sought-after book. You don't say. I have a lot of questions. Lucian smirks. Oh, I have no doubt about that. I'm looking forward to your interrogation. The music ends and Lucian bows to me, their hands sinking into their robes and pressing the small book into my hands when they stand. I quickly hide it away and I make a mental note to send them a thank you card. Or a bottle of wine. They like that better. Yeah, I believe it. Can Lucian even get drunk? I mean, they're a demon. Is it possible? There's an imaginary clock that begins ticking on in my head now that I have the book. There isn't much time left before people begin settling down for the evening. With triplets warning, I know time is of the essence. Think the triplets warning. As luck would have it, an upbeat song begins and it summons an exodus of people from the fringes of the room onto the dance floor. A clear path unfolds into a tucked-away bench outside on the balcony, and I hurry towards it. My body sinks with joy as I sink onto the cool stone. I've been ignoring the protest from my feet and my neck feels stiff, from both forcing good posture upon myself and from the stress of the evening. A low, familiar voice stops me from completely falling asleep on the spot. Looks like we're interrupting something. I chuckle. Let's just admire the CG for a moment. It's so beautiful together. How dare they? How dare? How very dare. You are, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't welcome. Masha helps me to my feet and draws me close. You've been terribly busy this evening. I don't blame you for wanting a breather. It's been far more hectic than I care for. You being here was a nice surprise, though. And having all of us together is like a dream. Do we want to watch the partygoers or stargaze? Let's roll a dice. Not that one. I put the D2 away and now I can't find it. I don't need you. You're in the way. You're in the way. That's in the way. There it is. I win. Okay. So it's a D2. So it's got a 1 on one side and a 20 on the other. So 120. 20. Stargaze. You know, I could spare a few minutes if you would like. The stars are beautiful tonight. Masha and Eric take my hands and we lean against the balcony together, looking up into the stars that twinkle above us. It's quiet, a peaceful kind, and we settle easily into it. Eric's hand is warm as mine, and like my own personal sun to shield me from the cold. As much as I hate to cut this short, Eric nods. I understand. Be careful. I will be. And you can always find me in my quarters later. We plan on it. They don't manage to get away before I see the blush color Eric's cheeks. I love that it's Maja that's the bold one, rather than Eric. Usually it's the man who's the bold one. There's a wave of relief as I sit, my body and mind protesting this evening as a whole. Stress, heavy clothing, torturous shoes, and the looming threat of betrayal is an awful combination I don't want to experience again. I pull out the book and flip open the cover. The music changed. I don't notice this when I play it by myself because I don't have my headphones in when I play. But let's go back. So there's the music. Sweet violin, and then stops. Something deeper, slower. Pull out the book and flick open the cover. Now let's see what makes you so special. My fingers run over the thin paper when I freeze. All the air seems to leave the space around me, and a wave of horrible, sickening dread crashes into me. I need to get out of here, and fast. My eyes dart around, trying to find an exit, and I curse as my hand goes for the hilt of my sword, only to be met with empty air. That seems to be a common theme with the knightly types. Olivia was the same way. Every fiber of my being is telling me to run, to go find my friends, but my legs feel like stone and I can't move. This glowing pressure of panic and fear constricts my chest and my throat, and I try to yell out to somebody, but I stop. Drawing attention to myself would only make things harder, and the last thing I want to do is instill panic into the partygoers. Isn't that what Raiden told them to do, is scream if they needed something or someone? And that's if I'm even capable of making noise at all, which seems unlikely. Then I hear it, the heavy echo of footsteps. I'm not alone out here. I try one more time to move my body, only to stop when I hear a familiar voice. Going somewhere, Ehab? What the? Nazir smiles, but it isn't warm. It's sharp and cruel, their energy crackling with danger. Long gone is the Nazir I've met before. Fear cleanses up my body, icy cold and immobilizing, and he laughs. I was hoping to stay and have a little chat. You've been a hard one to pin down this evening. My thoughts are firing in 1,000 different directions, but I force myself to breathe, to go back to my training, and focus on what is in front of me that I can understand, and go from there. The person in front of me is Nazir, but it's not. I can't move. Some unseen force is keeping me from moving. But that doesn't make sense. Nazir doesn't have magic, not that I know of, and whatever this power is, it's familiar. I'm racking my brain to remember where I felt it before when it hits me. This power feels the same as what the Queen and King did in the throne room. Shit. Nazir's grin grows along with the constricting pressure around my throat. I wheeze out, scrambling to try and get more air, when I see Nazir stumble back. The pressure dissipates, replaced by a swirling warmth that covers me from head to toe. Maja! That had to be a protective spell, and I feel so grateful that I could burst. Tears prick my eyes and start to spill over as I try to gather my bearings and even out my breathing. What the hell do you want? He answers only with a curious tilt of his head and the flick of his wrist, where a smooth, sharp dagger slides into his palm. You've been quite the topic of conversation around the castle, you know. I've been watching you to try to see what people think makes you so remarkable. Novus is an intricate machine with specific pieces needed to keep it running. Add or subtract one of the pieces and the structure falls apart. We were doing so well. And then you came along. I run my hand over my face as it contorts in frustration. I didn't ask for any of this, to be thrust in the middle of a foreign country and have the future of it rest on my back, and now it's clear that somebody is trying to kill me. So, cut to the chase or let him keep talking? Keep talking. Deep within me I feel something snap, not just from the pressure of this evening, but from everything that's happened since I stepped foot into Errant. It takes everything within me to keep my feet on the ground. I don't stop Nazir's monologue, even though I have a good idea of what he's leading up to. You sly dog, you got me monologuing. It's my job to know everything about what happens in the castle. When you arrived, I knew you were going to cause more trouble than you're worth. All you Victorian emissaries are. You didn't learn not to poke around things that aren't to be meddled with. But you couldn't stop there. Your little nighttime excursions haven't gone unnoticed, and the company you keep is quite interesting and unbecoming of someone of your station, Ehab. The words themselves don't hurt. Tonight has proven that stealth is my weakness, but what grips me with fear is the consequences of my stupidity. What I do doesn't just affect me, but my friends, even Maddox. I continuously look for an out anywhere I can find it, but it's no use. Even with Masha's protective spell, I can't just run away. I'm right where Nazir wants me to be. Unfortunately for you, your little antics have gotten you noticed by those far higher on the ladder, who have power beyond our wildest dreams. That was who gave me my mission tonight. A cold smile splits his face. To kill you. I spent most of tonight watching you, trying to see what exactly made you such a big threat, so that those with unlimited power want you taken off the board. Aside from the typical attributes most generic knights have, there is something unusual in the way that you carry yourself, like you know that you're set apart. Marked. Nasir's gaze splits to my shoulder and then back to my face. Why wait until now? There have been plenty of times you could have taken me out without nobody noticing. Somehow I manage to keep my voice even when I speak. First and foremost, my loyalties lie with the crown. If you're of better use to them alive, I have to take that into consideration. There's a small part of me that respects Nasir's unwavering loyalty, but for it to go so far as to disobey orders like that? Nasir inclines his head as he watches me, like he can hear my thoughts. You've almost got it. The truth hits me all at once, and it sends my heart plummeting to my stomach. They didn't order you to kill me. No. That sickeningly familiar dread begins to creep up again. You're working with Novus, aren't you? That was who you were speaking to earlier. Correct. So you have betrayed the crown. A harsh, cold laugh escapes his lips. Think for a moment about the last time you were in their Majesty's presence. Where do you think their powers, their very titles, came from? Oh, for fuck's sake. See, now you're getting it. As for the task at hand, I have to say I'm a bit impressed. You managed to do some impressive reconnaissance. Despite your conspicuousness, you did well. And that makes you a potentially valuable asset. Killing you would be a waste. You could be a tremendous aid to our noble cause. And what causes that? A destroyed world that's filled with pain and suffering? Only a monster would want such a thing. There's a shift in the air that's disorienting and icy cold, drawing all the air and energy towards Nasir. His eyes roll back in his head before shifting to an inky black glow. When he speaks, his voice isn't his own. It's like hundreds of voices rolled into one. Ehab Kadir. A loud bang distracts me, and I look over to see Livia running her shoulder into an invisible barrier. Eric feels around it, trying to find a way in, and Maja stands behind him. She glows bright with her magic, her eyes focused and her mouth moving rapidly to try and get to me. The relief from seeing them doesn't last long. Nasir, or whoever is possessing him, steps forward. It's clear to me now who's looking at me, but I'm too afraid to admit it to myself. You doubt my cause. My cause. You know who stands before you. Say it. Their name feels like acid on my tongue. Novus. Music. An evil smile unfurls across Nasir's face. Novus is my city, and I watch it carefully. I have witnessed regime changes, dynasties rise and fall. The old world must die for a better one to grow. This is the inevitable truth of the mortal world. The fatal flaw in mortals isn't their lifespans, but they can only think so broadly. Think of a forest. What happens when a fire ravages it? Does it stay a blackened wasteland of ash? No. Life that grows is far more lush and beautiful than what came before. The rulers of Novus are wise enough to understand this. The mortal whose form I take does as well. Tell me, if you had the chance to usher in a new, greater world of enlightenment and peace, would you take it? Novus snaps their fingers and a bright light blinds me for a moment. When I'm able to focus again, I no longer see Arduran, but another place entirely. So this is actually where Ungraf met with the nomad, now that I'm looking at it. Don't know why it didn't occur to me before now. It's beautiful. Fields green and ripe with crops, a bustling city free of poverty, a glittering castle on a hill. It's a world that most people can only dream of, but Novus is offering me a chance to make it reality. Are we going to hear him out, or are we going to reject him? We're going to reject him. Eventually I will hear him out, just not now. My shoulder burns as the mark flares and the illusion comes crashing down around me. Don't think I'm so easily fooled. All of that is a lie. Is it now? I have the power to make all of this happen. Mortals don't. I can feel Novus' presence extend towards me, trying to wrap itself around my limbs. You're wrong. People can change the world all the time for the better, but all you bring is ruin. Novus grows angrier and the pressure around me increases, but despite the exhaustion on her face, Masha's magic holds. Livia seems nearly frantic, and Eric's cool facade is cracking. The crown is so obsessed with power and glory that they're blind to your obvious treachery. I know better. Your empty promises mean nothing to me. Novus snarls. You insolent little cretin, you dare to insult me, a god? Your time is up, little mortal. With the cry, Novus surges forward, dagger raised. There's a blinding pain in my shoulder, and I gasp, sinking to the ground as a burst of energy pushes Novus away, and I get hurled back into the wall. The impact sends the breath from my lungs all at once. No! My vision is spotty, but I can see Novus move to put distance between us. There's a rumble, and a swirling dark cloud begins to form behind him. With one final look of murderous rage, he sinks into the swirling mass and disappears. It's then that I realize that the sound of the party has been dulled. When my ears pop, it all comes crashing back into me. I try to brace my hands on the ground to stand, but my arms shake too much. The sound of hurried footsteps gets closer as whatever barrier was holding my friends back evaporates. Eric sprints ahead, trying to see where Nazir went, and Livia and Maja kneel down to assess whatever damage I've accrued. Ehab, are you hurt? A groan escapes me as the women haul me up to my feet. I've had worse. Livia and Maja look at each other skeptically. The familiar warmth wraps around me, relaxes me. It's Maja's magic again. That definitely helps, though. Livia steps in front of me, her blue eyes searching my face. Don't strain yourself, but we need to debrief. I snort, debrief, like I just finished patrol. Well, to keep it simple, I pause. What is the best way to tell your friend that her brother tried to murder you, but only because he was possessed by an evil and omnipotent being? Novus is one who gave the Queen and King their powers in return for their loyalty. Nazir is loyal to the crown. Novus told Nazir to kill me, and in his defense he didn't want to, but Novus possessed him. I lightly tap on my shoulder, wincing at the tenderness of the skin. But Canidras decided to pull through, so all in all, I think it went pretty well. Masha and Livia stare at me. How have I not noticed this? It's not your fault, Masha. Livia looks at me. You can't go back to the palace in Novus, Ehab. I know. I look back towards the ball. There's no hint that any of the people inside even noticed what happened. I'm grateful in a way, but seeing this display of power has me shaken. I think I'll be safe tonight, at least. I'm still going to stand watch, and don't even think about stopping me. My half-formed protest dies on my tongue. You'll have to fight Maddox, I'm afraid. I take a step, but I wobble dangerously, and Eric and Livia each grab an arm to steady me. I got it. You definitely don't. Try to take a step and feel myself sway dangerously on my feet, but my fall backward is stopped by a broad chest. Eric. My body relaxes against him from the sheer relief of simply having him near, and a single strong arm holds me upright at my waist, his eyes filled with concern as he looks me over. I think it's time to call it a night. Maja zeroes in on a small scrape on my arm, holding it up and tutting softly. Let me get you patched up. I grunt in agreement, but protest as he begins to bend down and hook his other arm under my knees. My pride won't survive being carried out of a party by the great Sir Eric. He gives an irritated exhale, but he doesn't argue further. The others mutter comforted words as I'm shouted off, Eric and Masha keeping me steady as we weave through the stragglers of the ball. Eric doesn't speak as we make our way back to my chambers. His eyes look tired, and pieces of his golden hair fall loose over his face, his jaw set. The look on his face is guarded, his breath deep and even. It's an impressive facade, but I can tell that he's masking something. I hold my tongue, ready to ask him once we reach the privacy of our chambers, but when the door closes, I'm suddenly enveloped in a tight embrace. Eric holds me tight against his chest, his nose buried in my hair. It's almost like he isn't fully sure that I'm physically here. My heart aches as he releases a shaky, stuttered breath, and I rest my forehead against his. Maja begins fluttering around the room, grabbing the water basin and a fresh cloth and holding out her hand expectantly. I give her my arm and she begins to clean it, dabbing lightly over the scrape. None of us speak as she continues to treat my minor wounds, the only sounds coming from her wringing water out the cloth and the occasional sniffle. When she finishes, she sits by me and takes my hand in hers. I was so worried for you back there. I've never felt so helpless before. The thought of losing you. I nudged her gently with my shoulder. But you didn't lose me. I'm here, in one piece. Mostly. Needed to stretch. Her bottom lip bobbles, her eyes shining with tears that threatened to spill over. I can count on one hand the number of times I've been truly terrified in my life. Tonight goes on the list. You're a fierce fighter, and I know you don't need anyone fighting battles for you. Watching you, with no way of helping, all I could think of was that I might lose you. Brush away the tear that falls down Masha's cheek and gently guide her head to look at me. The constant threat of injury or worse is part of my job. You can't waste time wondering what could have happened. It serves no purpose. I'm okay. Better now that you're here. I care deeply for both of you, I fear, and it will take more than what happened tonight to be rid of me. She gives a teary laugh, nodding as she brushes away another tear. A yawn escapes me and I stretch out, my muscles aching. I think it's time for you to get some rest. I can't help but chuckle. Why do I get the feeling that you'll be staying here to make sure I do? They both have the decency to look a little sheepish, but they smile. You're not leaving our sight, Ehab. So what should I pick? Of course we're gonna go with the 4D option. We turn down the bed and do away with the bulky outer layers of our clothes. My lips curl at the corners as I lean in close enough to smell the sweet floral scent of her. I don't feel like sleeping. Her brow raises, looking me over. I dread to think about what she sees. I'm probably haggard. I can practically feel the bags under my eyes, and if she were to push with the slightest amount of force, I'd likely topple over. The epitome of seduction. Oh, something else in mind? I wrap an arm around her waist, press a kiss to the junction of her jaw, smiling when she tries to cover a giggle with a scoff. It's horribly endearing. They're just so lovely. Though I'm not sure I trust the placement of her elbow, but I suppose she'd be careful because she knows the where she's leaning. But they do, oh gosh, they always look so pretty together. I'm glad we finally get to see that. Can't believe you almost died and your first desire is to... I think I've earned it. Distraction's best form of medicine, don't you know? I don't think that's how the saying goes. I pull back to look at her. I can stop. Her teeth press down on her plush lower lip. Her hands curl into my clothes like she doesn't want to move away from me. But knowing Masha, she's probably worried I'll shatter to a million pieces if I so much as sneeze. We want you, always. But we also don't want you to push yourself. I'm not going to break. If you want me, you can have me. There's a rush of an exhale and Masha surges forward, kissing me with enough force to send me back on the bed. I laugh at her startled expression, but before she can even think of apologizing, I pull her in to kiss her again, and again, until our breath runs ragged. Having the two of them like this is better than I could have imagined. I take my time in learning them, all of them. It's never enough to have the feel of Eric's skin against mine, or the small sounds that fall from Masha's lips. The outside world fades away. All that exists is us, together, wrapped up in magic and something more, like an invisible tether. It feels like a dream, one that I daren't wake up from. Neither of us knows what lies ahead, but for tonight we're in our own world, happy, sated, and whole. Whew! Okay, there we go. Hopefully this is the last time I had to record that. Oh, why did I do that? Main menu, there we go. Okay, so I have already recorded the Nomads chapter and the Ambassador's finale, so those will go up after this one does. And actually my next live stream will be the finale for the night. So, yay! I really wanted to get this done before I did the finale for the night. Thank you for watching this. I apologize to the people who watched the live stream of this. I hope this makes up for it. If you, obviously you're watching this on YouTube, so please like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And, we are almost done. We're getting so close to the end of this. So, I will talk to you all next time. Bye!